The markets are closed, but the business stories are just heating up. Hello, I'm Mai Rodriguez. Catch up with us on Business Brief. Asian shares are trading mixed as investors await a key U.S. central bank gathering later this week that could determine the future path of interest rate policy. Japan's Nikkei, South Korea's Kospi, and Australia's ASX are in the red, while other major regional markets are in the green. In currency trade, the U.S. dollar gains against the South Korean won, but weakens against most other Asian currencies. The Australian dollar is little changed, with a slight downward bias against the greenback. In commodities, gold edges up by 0.1%, while oil prices are mixed. In crypto, Bitcoin slips nearly 0.9%, while Ethereum climbs more than 2%. 8 of the 15 contractors that cornered 100 billion pesos worth of flood control projects snubbed the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee's hearing today. Meanwhile, Senators grill Public Works and Highways Secretary Manuel Bonoan over questionable flood control projects. Our reporter Hannah T is at the Senate and she joins us live now for an update. Hannah, a bombshell from the Secretary himself. He just admitted that some of the flood control deals awarded to Wow Builders, which secured 5.9 billion pesos worth of contracts in Bulacan, were ghost projects. Tell us more about this.
That's right, my kleptopyrosis may just be the new name of the issue on flood control projects. That's according to Senator J.V. Ejercito after the DPWH confirmed the ghost flood control projects in Bulacan, and he calls it blatant stealing from public funds. And as earlier, Senate President Pro Tempore Jinggoy Estrada pressed the DPWH to confirm reports of ghost projects in Kalumpit, Hagonoy, and Malolos, Bulacan. Secretary Manuel Bonoan said yes, they received such information, and Estrada then called it disgusting that a contractor is allegedly behind the ghost projects, which are non-existent, that still received government funds. In the 3 areas, Wow Builders was awarded 85 projects from 2022 to 2025 worth nearly 6 billion pesos. Bonoan confirmed some of these are ghost projects. Wow Builders is among the top 15 contractors that cornered 20% of all flood control projects since July 2022. Reports submitted to Malacanang showed Wow completed over 50 flood control projects in Bulacan alone worth more than 4 billion pesos. But the company's general manager, Mark Alan Arevalo, was a no-show at the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee hearing. He's one of 8 contractors to be subpoenaed for the next hearing. If proven that Wow's projects are indeed ghost, the DPWH will file necessary charges. Bonoan says anyone involved in the implementation of ghost projects must be held accountable. The entire Bulacan 1st District Office has been relieved of duties. Norberto Santos, who was in charge of quality control, and Henry Alcantara, then district engineer, will be invited to the next hearing. Alcantara's supposed promotion to Assistant Regional Director for Region 4A was blocked after the issue. Bulacan has the most flood control projects in the country and ranks 6th among the most flood-prone provinces. Earlier, Bilyonaryo News Channel reported that Bulacan had the biggest budget insertion in the 2025 national budget, which amounted to about 12 billion pesos, and nearly 2 billion of this was allocated for flood control. And you're right, Maino, only 7 out of 15 contractors attended today's hearing. Ang ilan sa mga wala ay, of course, Sara Diskaya, who was reportedly the owner of 2 of the top 15 firms na binanggit ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos na di umano'y kumorner doon sa karamihan sa flood control projects sa Pilipinas. Ang iba pang wala ay ang top-notch DPWH, Catalyst Builders Incorporated, also SunWest Incorporated na di umano ay linked sa isang congressman na si Zaldico, and of course ang iba pang mga firm gaya ng Royal Crown Monarch Construction and Supplies Corporation, and ang ilan naman na dumalo kanina ay represented lang by legal counsel. Mai?
Hannah, what can we expect from the next hearing?
We are expecting na dapat dumalo na itong 15 contractors o yung mga may-ari nitong firms dahil of course subpoenaed na sila. And of course, syempre, as we know, based on experience, kapag hindi sumipot itong mga contractor, ay posible silang makontempt o ma-detain sa oras na i-defy o hindi nila sundin itong utos ng Senado na dumalo at makipag-cooperate doon sa investigation. And of course, kanina nakausap natin si DPWH Secretary Bunoan, sinabi niya na in a week's time, meron na silang report tungkol nga doon sa flood or ghost flood control projects na naibalita natin na meron umano sa 3 areas sa Bulacan. Back to you, Mai.
All right, thank you. Hannah T. live from the Senate. The Philippine economy may grow by 6% in 2026. Christina Ulang, research head of the First Metro Investment Corporation, tells BNC's Business 360 that easing inflation will be a key driver. She adds that the Bangko Sentral may cut rates by 25 basis points this month.
And we view 2025 to be the trough year. And what's really positive for us is our low inflation.
Inflation slowed to just 0.9% in July, its weakest pace in nearly 6 years, as rice prices fell to record lows and gains in utility costs moderated. The country's current account deficit is expected to widen in the coming years. Fitch Solutions Unit, BMI, sees the gap averaging 2.8% of gross domestic product over the next 3 years, far above the 0.4% average from 2015 to 2019. The deficit is projected at 3% of GDP this year, before slightly narrowing to 2.8% in 2026, 2.6% in 2027, and 2.3% in 2028. BMI says the wider gap reflects weaker external demand amid global trade uncertainties. The government continues to tap the market through retail treasury bonds. It sold 507.16 billion pesos worth of RTBs, far above target as investors chased higher yields. National Treasurer Sharon Almanza said demand was supported by strong fundamentals and expectations that interest rates will keep easing. She noted yields rallied lower after the rate-setting auction. The 5-year RTB sale was nearly 17 times the 30 billion target, though still below the record 584.86 billion raised in February 2024. The Treasury Bureau says 425.5 billion came from new borrowing, while the remaining 81.65 billion was raised through a bond exchange. The strong uptake highlights investor confidence in government securities and provides crucial funding flexibility as the Philippines works to manage a record 19 trillion debt load by 2026. Telecommunications firms PLDT and Converge ICT Solutions say they are willing to provide inputs on the implementing rules and regulations of the Konektadong Pinoy bill. The measure was transmitted to the palace for President Marcos's signature last month. It is expected to lapse into law on August 24th. PLDT's Chief Legal Counsel, John De Venecia Fabul, says their suggestions could address industry concerns on the bill. Converge, for its part, hopes the private sector will be consulted in crafting the IRR. The bill, which aims to increase internet access by relaxing regulations and allowing more players into the data transmission industry, has been opposed by telecoms firms. Labor groups are backing a Senate proposal to institutionalize a 14th month pay for private sector workers. Sani Matula, president of the Federation of Free Workers, says this would give employees an extra month's pay on top of the 13th month already mandated under Presidential Decree 851. He described the measure as a long overdue response to the rising cost of living, adding that both private and public sector workers deserve the reform. Joshua Mata, Secretary General of the group Sentro ng mga Nagkakaisa at Progresibong Manggagawa, also welcomed the proposal but noted that its impact may be limited unless paired with a meaningful wage hike. We're taking a short break. More business stories are up next. You're watching Business Brief. A study reveals Filipino consumers are losing their trust in credit cards, but more Filipinos are shifting to e-wallets. Sujin Kim joins us on the line for the details. Sujin, go ahead.
Yes, my TransUnion's 2025 Credit Perception Index shows Filipinos are trusting credit marginally less. The overall score slipped to 73 from 74 last year, raising questions about whether improving trust is actually translating into real adoption. Trust in products rose 6 points, yet credit messaging collapsed by 9 points, a clear sign that Filipinos are growing wary of marketing promises.
So what consumers have told us is it's around fraud and scams, where consumers are feeling that the trust isn't quite there and they're worried about borrowing and potentially being a victim of a fraud or a scam. And they're also worried about the interest rate and their ability to actually pay back what they're borrowing.
The unbanked population improved to 67, narrowing the gap with the general public, but the fact remains, millions of Filipinos are still locked out of formal credit. Fintech users registered the highest score at 74, driven by e-wallets, and actually overtaking bank accounts as the first financial product. Nearly half of Gen Z now start their financial lives with a digital wallet instead of a bank.
Convenience rates vary highly amongst users. I think doing anything on your phone is certainly more convenient. You know, there's an app for pretty much everything these days.
Buy now, pay later products are also gaining popularity, up 5 points in awareness this year.
Traditional products, credit cards, personal loans, mortgages, customers felt were risky, whereas BNPL, payday loans, I think installments were seen as more helpful.
But behind the upticks are warning signs. 6 out of 10 Filipinos still cite crippling interest rates as the biggest barrier, while fraud fears remain rampant, with more than half of general, unbanked, and fintech users saying they do not feel secure. Regulators have promised to crack down on abusive lending apps, but complaints continue to pile up.
BSP and SEC are responsible for. I think have a good hold on managing that part of the industry. And so I think that if those two things continue, strong regulation as well as trust, then I think it'll end up very positive for the industry and for consumers.
TransUnion Philippines President Peter Follabert defended the results as a sign of progress, but the index also reveals a credit system that risks leaving consumers more exposed, including to high costs, digital fraud, and to the pressures of an aggressively expanding fintech sector. And those are latest updates from Makati City. Back to you, Mai.
Thank you for that report, Sujin Kim. SM Hotels and Conventions Corporation, the hospitality arm of SM Prime Holdings, is set to open a new Park Inn by Radisson in Santa Rosa, Laguna by the first quarter of 2029. In a disclosure, SM Prime said the project forms part of its regional expansion. It currently operates 10 hotels with more than 2,600 rooms, 6 convention centers, and 2 trade halls, spanning over 42,000 square meters. Its portfolio also includes Conrad Manila, Radisson Blu, Lanson Place, Taal Vista Hotel, and Pico Sands Hotel. The 1.5 billion peso park in Santa Rosa will feature 201 rooms, dining outlets, a pool, a gym, and dedicated meeting and event spaces. It will also connect directly to a premier SM Mall and the upcoming SMX Santa Rosa Trade Hall via Bridgeway. The new 4,000 square meter events hub aims to attract both regional and national MICE organizers and guests. EEI Corporation is seeing stronger revenue visibility and growth as its project backlog grows to 36.85 billion pesos as of July 2025. In a disclosure, the leading construction firm said this marks a 40% increase from the 26.39 billion backlog reported in the same period last year. EEI is regaining momentum after posting a significant loss in 2024, largely due to claims tied to prolonged pandemic lockdowns. The company emphasized that during those times, it prioritized employee welfare, continuing to provide full wages, food, and lodging despite work stoppages. We're taking another breather, a look at how Philippine stocks did today, coming up next. You're watching Business Brief. You're back on Business Brief. The SoftBank Group is taking a $2 billion equity stake in chipmaker Intel. The Japanese investment company will pay $23 per share for Intel common stock. This would make SoftBank the sixth largest investor in Intel. Bloomberg News previously reported that the U.S. government is in talks to take a 10% stake in Intel. This after President Trump called for the resignation of the company's CEO, citing his ties to Chinese firms. French President Emmanuel Macron says a meeting between Ukraine leader Volodymyr Zelensky and Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin will happen soon. This was agreed upon during a meeting with European leaders and U.S. President Trump in Washington. Macron warns the U.S. could sanction Russia if Putin will not participate in peace negotiations. He also said European leaders will join negotiations in its later stages.
It was agreed today that we will work with the United States of America on the content of these security guarantees and the cooperation that each side is prepared to provide. I was able to go over again, this afternoon, on the content of these security guarantees, which consist of a robust Ukrainian army, which carries weight and can resist and deter any attempted attack.
Swatch, the Swiss watchmaker, is under fire in China after releasing ads featuring an Asian male model pulling the corner of his eyes in a slanted eye gesture. Angry residents in Shanghai questioned how the campaign cleared approvals, forcing the company to pull the ads and issue a public apology both in Chinese and English. A top fashion influencer said the apology may limit long-term damage, but warned that brands must do better when representing Asian models.
They already apologized on a long-term basis. I still think the business is going to pick up because it was not really intentional. At least it was not the intention from the brand. It was just maybe some uncareful decision made by the photographer who didn't really understand China. So again, to repeat, don't try to, I think when they do this campaign, especially when they use Asian models, they should pay this attention, like a fundamental guideline.
Philippine shares stay in the 6,200 level after falling for the second straight day. The PSE index ended lower by nearly 0.2% to close at 62.77, finishing the day as the 10th worst performer in Asia. Majority of the sectoral indices ended in the red, with services falling the most at over 1%. Decliners outpaced advancers 101 to 86. Total value turnover reached 7.6 billion pesos. The day's most active stocks ended mixed, with DigiPlus rising the most at over 11%, Converge, on the other hand, fell the most at more than 3%. Meanwhile, the foreign exchange market, the peso, is currently trading at 57.10 against the greenback, down from its previous close of 56.97. That's a wrap for today's Business Brief. I'm Mai Rodriguez. Join us again tomorrow as we bring you the stories that help you plan your next big, bold moves in business, only here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel. See you then.